Okay, so this week we're going to start to learn how to critically analyze a reading, and we'll continue to practice this with a lot of different readings. What we're preparing for is eventually to write a critical analysis for midterm of an article. So this is just kind of step one. We're just starting this. First, of course, you want to annotate the reading, and I'm hoping that you did that with the Dumbest Generation article that we read last week. Remember, when annotating, you want to use the 10 different types of annotations. Most importantly, you want to make sure to get the main idea correct, and you're going to look for what we've learned so far in rhetorical devices. So far, we have only talked about a few. We've talked about modes of discourse, which isn't really a rhetorical device, just the type of writing, and methods of paragraph development. So that's what I wanted you to look for in the Dumbest Generation, any methods of paragraph development. And of course, any other techniques that you're familiar with, you can mark. We will be learning quite a few techniques, and so you'll be able to mark more and more things as the semester progresses. So I'm going to give you an example using the Facebook article from week 2. So you can see some of my paraphrasing on the side. The main idea is marked. Notice I think it still needs a little work, and you'll see kind of how I go through that. Then I went back and I marked the methods of paragraph development, and you can see that there's some examples, there's some contrast. I actually put history as a method of paragraph development just because she gives some of her background history with the friend she was talking about. I found a simile in there, so I had marked that. There's an allusion on the front. She ends with an allusion. If you're not familiar with allusions, don't worry. That comes up in a couple weeks, and we'll be kind of exploring those. Here's more of my annotations. I circled some words I didn't know and some words that I thought were strong word choice. And then there's just some of my brainstorming there. So now if I'm going to take and I'm going to make it into a critical analysis, the first thing I want to do is I want to evaluate my main idea sentence. And so I had Facebook is not a place we want to debate. Our friends are people we agree with. And then I want to look at that. I want to fine tune it. I want to make sure I'm correct. A lot of times we'll mark the main idea that we see in the somewhere in the beginning of an article. But of course, especially in opinion articles, the main idea might change by the time we get to the end. So you want to go back and look at your main idea sentence, make sure you've really captured it. Don't worry about getting it too, sounding too great right now. Like, this isn't, I think, the greatest way to phrase this main idea sentence, but as I'm working on a critical analysis, that sentence will eventually get better and better, But I want to make sure it covers everything. And is it enough of a statement for right now? And that's all you need, is enough of a main idea sentence to work with right now. Then I'm going to write my thesis out. Okay, and so my thesis statement for this is going to include the author's name, the title of the article in quotations, the main idea, and the techniques. Sometimes when you eventually do get to writing this out as an essay, you may mention the author's name or the title of the article somewhere before your thesis, so you don't need it in that thesis sentence, but you do need all of these in your introductory article. So here's my example for the week 2 article. I say in the article, op-ed, How to Lose Friends on Facebook, the author, Tal Abate, uses contrast, examples, and allusions to show that Facebook is a place for niceties and not political debate. So I changed my main idea statement just a little bit. I include the techniques I'm going to talk about. I've got the author's name and the title of the article in there. So this is the thesis. This is what my critical analysis is going to set out to prove, that the author uses these techniques to prove her main idea. Then I'm going to start mapping out my critical analysis. Okay, so I start with my introduction. In an introductory paragraph, we pretty much need the same things. I'm going to show you just kind of a format for it. Of course, you don't always have to follow the format to the letter. I don't want you to think that, but it does make it easier for you to write a critical analysis. So I'm going to start with a hook. Okay, hook's always going to be something to get the reader interested in. I'm not going to say this essay is going to talk about, because that doesn't really get the reader interested. Something, with a hook. And when I'm thinking about a hook for an essay like this, something about Facebook, something maybe about being dropped as a friend. Again, a hook might be something you come back to because it may be easier once you write your essay to kind of get a good hook. I want to give some background information about the issue. Remember, when we're writing essays like this or doing a critical analysis, we're to assume the reader of the essay has not read the article. So I just want to give a little bit of background about the issue. And then I'm going to finally put my thesis. So an introductory paragraph looks like this. Introduction, hook, background, thesis. Okay, hook, I kind of left my hook blank because I'm not sure if I want to go with a question like, have you ever been unfriended on Facebook? Questions kind of don't always sound good as a hook. I do like something that she uses in her article. She says a recent study from the University of Colorado, Denver found that polarizing posts are one of the most frequently cited reasons for unfriending someone on Facebook. I could use that quote in there. I might even go to this study and find out the numbers of being unfriended for that reason and put that there. Then my background, but you notice I left my hook blank. I always find it a little difficult to write hooks. Then for my background, I'm going to put people often post opinions on Facebook that lead to heated comments and even people unfriending them. Okay, so that's kind of the background information. That's the issue we're talking about. And then I have my thesis there. For the body paragraph, what you're going to do and again, we're just mapping out, we're just doing an outline, and I'll explain that to you. I'm going to talk about my first technique, okay? So then when you talk about your technique, you're going to give an example from the article, either one you just kind of paraphrase, or you can use a quote for your example. Explain why the author uses this example, or this, what you quote from there, to prove his or her main point. Then maybe give a second example if it works, and then again, tie it to the thesis, how it proves his or her main point. Here's an example. Okay, so in the examples, first technique I'm going to use is the example paragraph she uses. So the first example she uses is a close friend, Muslim friend, that unfriends her after she posts statistics about Hamas missiles. Okay, and then I'm going to explain that this example shows the results of talking about a very polarizing issue. The second example that she uses is her husband was unfriended by a close Jewish friend sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. Why does she use this? To prove that political argument causes people to no longer be Facebook friends. So again, I'm giving the examples, and then what I'm doing is I'm taking those examples and I'm tying them right back to my thesis statement, right back to my main idea. The author uses these to show this, and how does that prove the main idea? A second technique she uses is contrast, okay? And so the example I use for contrast is that children, she contrasts that they were children enthralled by their teachers and blood-pledged friends, and now contrasting to them when they were children, their parents, professionals, and they have unrecognizable political views. So this shows how open-minded children change into closed-minded adults, okay? So the contrast of how they were friends before to how they're friends now. And another example is the fifth to the last paragraph, and what she does there is she contrasts the childhood of she and that woman that unfriended her, and contrasts how good of friends they were then, and now they've taken separate paths. And why it shows the closeness of the friendship is not enough to withstand the vocal expressions of political differences that were posted on Facebook. So that it proves her main idea. All right, so what I want you to do is work on a rough draft of an outline to turn in for the Dumbest Generation article. You're going to create an outline of the first 3 paragraphs of a critical analysis, just like I did. So you're just going to outline what you would put in a main idea paragraph. So hook, and if you have trouble with that, that's okay. It doesn't have to be great. Background, okay, what was the issue in the Dumbest Generation, and then a main idea sentence. And this one's a little harder, so again, and this is still practice, so don't worry about if you don't get the we'll discuss the main idea sentence, because it's a little more of a complicated main idea sentence than for the Facebook article. So then you're going to turn this in either as a Word document or a Google document, and you'll see a place under assignments for you to turn that in. So this is what it will look like, the example of the setup. So you're just going to write this down. You're going to write introduction and then hook, and then put something, either what you'd exactly put for a hook or kind of some kind of idea, like I might put a question about Facebook or a statistic about Facebook. Then a background, you're just a sentence or two about what the issue was in the Dumbest Generation article, and then write out your thesis. Okay, the main idea and 3 techniques, and it's okay. Right now you might just pick 3 methods of paragraph development that the author uses. And then I just want you to map out 2 of those techniques. Okay, so this is the first technique. Give me an example of the author using that technique, and explain why the author uses it and how it helps to prove, or the authors, it's actually 2 authors, how it helps to prove their main point. Then give another example, and again, tie it back to the main idea. Then do that with your second technique. An example, why the author uses it, another example, and why the author uses it. Right now we're just kind of starting this, so I just want you to get your introduction and then your first and second technique. So what you'll turn in will look pretty much exactly like what I have up here, except that you will have something after hook and something after background, and you'll have your thesis written out. You'll have the example. So create this outline and then just fill that information in. And again, remember, we're just starting this. We're going to do this with numerous articles. So if this seems difficult, that's okay. You're still in the learning process. And by the time we get to the midterm and I actually have you write the essay instead of just do the outline, because right now you're just doing the outline, you should understand this pretty well. And if you have any questions, email me.